Research recommendations for better agronomic results. That's what we're talking about in this episode of Calibrate Your Agronomy. Hey there, you are joining us for another fantastic rendition here of the Calibrate Your Agronomy series. I've got Mike Evans, I've got Jared Cook, and I've got Illinois farmer and agribusiness person Luke Holst, who is part of the Calibrated Agronomy team. And we're talking about this time about research recommendations. I'm Damian Mason. I host these videos, and I always learn just as much as you. So I'm going to ask the questions that you're probably asking as we go through this discussion. Traditional ag retail, it's been around for a long, long time. The sales reps, sales agronomists, we like to call them, come out there and they make their recommendations. But where did the recommendations come from? They probably came from their book of knowledge, what the university standards are, and what they've been told to go out and sell. Not being offensive, just being honest. That's how the whole situation works. So what research and what data are you relying on your farming operation that then helps you make better decisions? Do you actually know what is specifically good for your farm, your soil type, your region, your climate, your crop? You probably don't, but these guys can help you. All right, Mr. Evans, you have a background ag retail. Did you do a lot of research every time you went out to somebody's farm when they told you to go out and sell something, or did you go out there and say, here's what most people are doing, and this is what we recommend you do?
Yeah, I mean, probably a lot more of the latter. Just using what hearsay or what we saw in meetings. Traditional ag retail is pretty busy, doing a lot of things. We did a few places I've worked. We did try to do our own, in-house research, and, worked and it didn't work. I thought at times, trying to research and just scale this stuff at the time was a little more difficult. We didn't have the technology we do today on some of the things we were trying to do or learn from. So I think a lot of it is just relying on the universities or the companies you're selling for. So
Luke's nodding his head. It works. You'd have a hard time arguing against it. You'd say, you know what? Every year our yields go up on a trend line anyhow. Yields go up an extra 0.8 of a bushel per acre on soybeans every year, an extra 2 bushels of corn every year. We're using less applied nutrients per unit of actual yield in general. It works. What's wrong with it?
Probably more just a little, a lot of the recommendations we found can be a little inefficient. Coming from the universities, like in Illinois, for instance, we've researched this over and over, and we found that a university recommendation will tell you to build your soil K test levels with potash. Yeah. It's really common. Everybody does it. And we've tested that over the years by using check block strategies where we go out into the field and say we're going to flat rate apply a rate, and then we will put blocks out there where we go higher rate, or we will go into a management zone and do like a build recommendation, and we just could never see it returned in the subsequent soil tests after, is an example. It's like we just could not build K soil tests here in Illinois, even though a university recommendation, you go by the book, it says that you should, and they will give you a recommendation to do that. And sometimes that can cost, $40, $50 an acre more if you're trying to implement that strategy. And then we just never saw results. So went back to more of a maintenance type strategy using georeference yield data, and found that was maybe a more efficient way to do it than what just the straight by the book recommendations were.
Jared, give me an example. I said research equals results. All right. You're running around Idaho right now. You're in your truck in Idaho as we speak. Are you doing research? Are you just going out looking at plants? I mean, technically, the person that's a skeptic is going to say, what are you talking about? I mean, I go out there and looked at their fields. That's research. I know that they have low soil or they have high CEC soils. There's a lot of people that probably think they're doing the research. You tell me how yours is more in depth than normal.
The way, Damien, we try to approach it now is to account for the antagonism that might hinder or inhibit nutrient use efficiency. Consider this: most of the recommendations from universities don't account for the antagonism that farmers might face in their soil. So take, for example, the Western U.S., high bicarbonate soils, high calcareous nature, high alkalinity in our irrigation water. Shift to the Corn Belt, high iron, high aluminum, high organic matter in some situations. All of those elements can factor in antagonism to your applied nutrition. And so the research I do is to try to understand and evaluate how the antagonism might inhibit the performance of your applied fertility. And so we do that by looking at irrigation water analysis, by looking at water soluble nutrients in the soil, and just coming to a true understanding of what's out there. What is it in its entirety that we have to manage, just so we're aware of how nutrients might behave.
Didn't we do something about water, Evans? Didn't we talk about water with you at one other time? And the fact is, all water is not created equal. Even well water to well water, or surface water to surface water, is not all. So is that the kind of stuff we're talking about? If I'm a farmer in Indiana, where I am, and I want to have you help me farm better, do you start by saying, okay, are you using irrigation? And then send me a water sample. I mean, talk about what things are you digging into? Mr. Cook talks about antagonism. Where are you going? Where are you going besides the antagonistic features of stuff that doesn't play well together? Where else?
Yeah, I think that's what we do at Calibrated Agronomy, is try to look at the whole picture. If you're irrigating, we want irrigation samples, and we'll get them in, and we'll have Luke analyze them and see what the good and the bad is. There's some good, but there's also, like Jared says all the time, there's baggage that you got to deal with, and that'll go across into your soils too. I mean, to Luke's point, like earlier, he's talking about the soil potassium, and we did a lot when I was back in retail of these trend lines on soil K and parts per million and how that affected yield. But there's a breaking point where you put on so much K, your soil test level, you may gain 3-4 parts per million, spend $40 to do it, and get a bushel of corn. Well, that don't pencil out in the long run either. So, we look at it from that perspective of let's dig into some new methods. Ones like the rapid soil test we do is what Jared's talking about. We pull a rapid soil, we get water soluble nutrients, and we can look at those antagonisms that are going on in the soil and see what we need to do to amend them or work with them.
I got to step in here and say, all right, you guys have all got enough years of experience. There's somebody that says, well, that's all cute, but you know what? I've been doing this for 30 years. My research is my 30 years of experience. I know when I see this, and I know what this happens. So, I mean, I guess defend that. Is that person right? The person that says, I've been doing this for 30 years. That is my research. Jared's nodding.
No, that person's not wrong. That person's not wrong for sure. But if we want to, as new products come out and new practices come out, you want to evaluate what's all out there that's new and up and coming. You need to do some of your own research to make sure that it's the right fit for you. And something might not necessarily, like, say, it harm yield because I changed the practice, but it could also cost you money for no gain. And that, more often than not, that's what we see is, yeah, this is the way I've been doing it for 30 years, and that works fine. But is there a more efficient way to do it? And are you spending money that maybe you don't need to?
So you think the research basically is, yeah, if I'm going against a traditional retailer that just comes out with their clipboard and here's the 9 products we recommend, and it works for the guy down the road and it works for the guy in the next township over, and you say, great, but you're dropping $32 an acre that is unnecessary, and in a year like this, that could be your margin.
Yeah.
Hey, Mr. Evans, speaking of the products, you said before we hit record that one of the things that you guys are doing more is product profiling. So you or Jared can talk about this. I said product profiling, all I got to do is look at the label. Why is that not sufficient?
What we tend to find is, with Kelly and Extreme Ag and a lot of other companies we work with, there's a lot of stuff that gets put on the label. We label our own products. Luke does a lot of that for us. And, what needs to be put on label and what actually gets put on label, I guess, is two different things at times. And we've seen it in ourselves, our own farms, and Jared could probably highlight this too, is, we'll mix some products together and get a negative response. And I don't think it's the either one product is fault, but you put them together, then there's some kind of natural either redundancy or things that weren't disclosed to us that were disclosed later that weren't on the label and cause some negative things. And I think that's the biggest thing, is just not understanding the whole product, and the label don't tell you everything. Right, Jared?
That's a fact, Mike. I mean, I've seen it too many times, especially with the rise of biostimulants, and the aggressive nature of the biostimulant push in the market. You boil it down, you got biostimulants. They range from amino acids to plant hormones to different seaweeds, sea kelps, different biostimulant or botanical extracts.
Right.
In nature, I mean, there's only so many of these things can exist. And my biggest fear for the American farmer is, are we getting redundant in these chemistries when you're adding this product, adding that product without truly knowing what's behind the scenes? And so
kind of goes to Luke's point that part of product profiling actually brings you back to maybe it's a removal process.
Absolutely.
You've got this, and this, and one of those is unnecessary because of redundancy.
Right. We've seen it before. We've documented it. Certain biostimulants, you deploy the product one time at a set rate, and it's going to increase your nutritional demand 20, 30%. And if you're not prepared to manage that increase in nutritional demand, you're going backwards at some point in the game. And so it becomes essential for a calibrated agronomy, our agronomy team, to know exactly what's going in the tank mix.
So, Luke, you're nodding your head on that. That's beyond just product profiling. I mean, obviously, then that's the issue of, wait a minute, this doesn't work with this. So it goes back to the antagonism thing. Is antagonism the biggest problem, or is it because that costs you money, or is it just you think it's more just overspend?
Yeah, it could be an overspin, but like Jared's point, you got to be careful with the products that you're using, because you can, especially when you get into these biostimulants and that whole world that's becoming a lot more common, is you can make things go backwards with them if you don't understand the product and don't understand what's in the product. And we've done that work. We go out and test a product, especially with these biostimulant products, and we may find that this product has a great response, and we'll go do replicated trials on sap and see that it increases these 4 or 5 things, but it also decreases, say, micronutrients. Because when we did that, we caused a plant response that caused physiologically the plant to ramp up, which then created a demand on micronutrients. So we did 4 or 5 good things and 3 or 4 things that went the other way. So we need to account for that. And that's kind of some of the stuff we're looking for and searching for when we put together products and recommendations.
All right. So when you talk, recommendations obviously come with research, et cetera, et cetera. Let's be honest here. How many times I get the same recommendation because I have the same set of circumstances? I mean, is it fair to say that at a certain point, then one extrapolates to the next? I mean, if I've got a similar setup and situation, there can't be that big of a variation between me and the next county over, or can there?
There can be, yeah. I mean, soil type and the weather can just be a major change. Just the stressors that are put on by the environment, and we'll see a big change. Like, for instance, our product HEP pump last year worked great across a wide geography, but when we went into that with that product into, say, Minnesota, that was under really waterlogged conditions,
yep,
triple the response because of those particular conditions. So there's more nuance to it than just a broad spectrum. Hey, it works here, it's going to work everywhere, depending on the environment.
Mr. Evans, mostly the problem is I can overspend, or I can cost myself yield. Is there anything else? If I'm using not researched recommendations, can I harm my soil?
Potentially. I mean, you could, if you do it in excess. If you want to spend the money to go put on a truckload of potash on your field, I mean, you can go backwards with the negatives that come along with that, with the salt content or the chloride load that you're putting on it. I mean, you can, if you want to take it to extreme. But I don't, from what we see, it's, working on using, drawing a blank. You're gonna have to cut that one
out. You're fine. All right. I got a question then. Are you ready for Jared? You ready, Jared?
Yeah, buddy.
I like it when he calls me D Money. It makes me feel like I'm kind of maybe like I'm a rapper. You know what I'm saying, Luke? I mean, like I'm kind of cool like that. All right. One of the things you do for your research is you have a soil sensor, and you tell people, go out and put this in your field. one sensor per farm seems a little light. How does it help you?
Damien, actually, we do multiple sensors per field based on soil types. If you have heavy clay in one geography, lighter silty sand, or loamy soil in an area, we try to put sensors in the what represents the field average, right? But also the extremes. What we track by that is number one, soil temperature. We track soil moisture. We also track soil growing degree days. Soil growing degree day is slightly different than the common growing degree day above ground, which takes place with ambient air. This is soil-derived soil growing degree days. We can target disease accumulation, pest attack, say like soybean cyst nematode or sugar beet cyst nematode. Those types of things are calculated by a soil growing degree day value. So there's a lot of insightful elements that come our way with these sensors by giving us eyes to see under the ground, just based on the information. So we can make good decisions with those soil growing degree day measurements.
So you encourage your clients all to get these?
Absolutely.
You got one deployed up here by me, I think. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we've gone up. Yep.
All right. So tell me, this is, how do I get this? Is it beamed to me on my phone? What's going on in this field?
Yeah, there's a user interface, Damien, that rolls right to a digital app on your phone.
Okay.
It gives you real-time reporting of what's happening.
Okay.
There's a web dashboard, web-based server that gives you a little more of a broader view. But the mobile app is very quick, very, very user-friendly, just to see what's shaking out.
Good. So most of your clients, you think, need the soil sensor, the Soil Tech Beacon soil sensor to make best recommendations based on the data.
Absolutely.
Okay. And so the person that says, yeah, but these things cost money, maybe it's not worth it. Can you show me the payback on one of those soil sensors in the first season?
Yeah, no question. You can show a payback in the first season just on being able to identify the point in time when your soil mineralization kicks in. That organic matter release of nitrogen, phosphorus. I mean, you can start to trigger it, especially if you're overlaying the sensor technology with like SAP analysis. You can really start to see that, okay, at this soil growing degree day, we had a release of nitrogen. Here it is in the SAP. That starts to really hone you in on the farm on making good decisions and knowing how the rhythm and flow of your nutrient cycling is occurring.
Another thing you do for research is SAP. So the person says, no, I do soil samples. Every 3 years we pull soil samples. And you say that's not adequate because that's yesterday's news. So you do beyond soil testing, which you do recommend, right? As part of your recommendations, you say I need to do soil samples. How often do you do them?
I do them weekly. In our intense vegetable production out here in Idaho and different areas, we go weekly. We'll overlay a rapid soil test, which is looking at water-soluble nutrients. We'll pair that with a SAP analysis, which is measuring new growth and old growth. And the reason we do that is the rapid soil test calibrates to the SAP uptake. So you're seeing what's happening above ground and below ground simultaneously for very good agronomic diagnostics.
It does seem a little excessive.
Damien, here.
Hey, Luke, doesn't that seem a little excessive? You're in Illinois. You don't even need to bother with soil testing, right? Like, you just can drive around and like drink beer and look at the field and be like, yeah, that's what happens. 12 feet of topsoil. We don't have to worry about it. We're in Illinois.
Yeah, pretty much. No. So yeah, like our strategy in Illinois, because we're, row crop corn and beans, is we still do traditional soil testing like everybody around here kind of does, just to monitor our soil levels. We use a zone-based method to build management zones based on the production history of the field, which makes that sampling a little cheaper than the normal, what most guys are doing on 2.5 acre grids, whereas we're doing a management zone strategy where the field's delineated of where the good areas, the poor areas, and the medium areas are. So it's less sampling, but we get better information because all the samples come from a similar landscape. And so we'll save a little bit there and then use it in season on the SAP in the rapid. And we will pull that rapid soil in Illinois. We don't do it quite as common as Jared. It'll be probably every 2 weeks on certain fields. And then we'll SAP some fields every week. And most fields get SAPed at least a few times through the season. And then we'll monitor that just like Jared's talking with the rapid and the sap for the in-season recommendations.
All right, Mike Evans, you made me a believer that the soil sensor pays for itself, because I can see that growing degrees in the soil are different than growing degrees based on ambient temperature, all that stuff, mineralization, all the stuff that Mr. Cook talked about. But all this testing costs a lot of money. I might be staring down break even this year. Tell me why this amount of data is actually justifiable when I'm talking about a skinny year. Pulling sap samples every couple of weeks, pulling rapid soil tests, it's getting to be a lot.
Yeah, it can seem like a lot. And we're not talking about every field doing that. Like most of the guys I deal with, we'll take one field and we'll intensely manage it using these sensors, rapid soils, sap analysis. And we've implemented that kind of strategy, because like do one field and then you can learn from it, and then you can kind of deploy it across your operation and spread that sampling cost over the whole operation. And it really drives the cost per acre down. And then you're learning on your farm, in your environment, and your management strategies, and learning how, like Jared says, the ebb and flow of a nutrient uptake or non-uptake, if there's no available nutrients, and find the weaknesses in the nutrient cycling in that field and make adjustments going into next year. It's really looking into the future. You're sampling this year, obviously, for this crop, but you're investing in the next 3 or 4 years of crop rotations.
Okay, so here's the thing. You might have just spent $100 an acre on all this data. And you can say, yeah, but we saved you. I mean, you can't save me $100 on inputs, because it's almost not there. So it has to come out in bigger yields. Otherwise, I just spent a bunch of money that I can't save enough. I can't cut back enough unless I go with no inputs at all to justify it. So it has to come out on the yield side. Am I right?
Yeah. I mean, it's still, like a full program.
Am I right? Is $100 an acre an accurate number for the data collection? Jared's shaking his head.
No.
Yeah, it can be anywhere from $4 to $10 an acre, depending on how intense you want to get. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's just, that's across the whole operation. That's not
Luke, I like to be more of a dramatic type. I mean, not as much as Clint. Oh, God, that guy. But anyway, I thought it'd be more dramatic if I said $100. He's telling me I can do it for 10. Is that a real number?
That's a real number.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, Luke, go ahead. That's a real number.
All right, Jared. It's $10 an acre is a real number.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So then it becomes the issue of it's pretty easy to make back $10.
Yeah, but what you got to realize, you're going to spend $10 this year, and the information you gain this year is going to streamline your decision making for the next year and the next year and the next year. And as you start to overlay years and years of data, man, your decision making becomes refined and defined to a very, very freaking efficient level.
Yeah.
And that's what we're seeing.
Yeah. Give me a real life success story going around the horn here. Who wants to go first? Real life success story where you looked at somebody and you changed their results because you said, you know what, you're not doing anything overtly wrong, but this. And so it's either on the cost or on the bigger yield. Give me some real life examples where you said, why do you do this? And then they had to probably sheepishly say, well, that's because that's what I've always done. That's what my ag retailer told me to do. All right, Jared, you go first. You always got plenty to say.
Oh yeah. Real life story. Well, just here recently, we had sugar beet crop that were just rocking and rolling, and then overnight just stalled out. We thought it was paired with a fertilizer application that we had made. Thought we'd overdone it with fertility. Good news was we had our soil tech beacon out there measuring the soil temperature. What it boiled down to, Damien, is we lost over 15, there's almost 17 degrees of soil temperature. And that was the culprit of the decline in plant growth. Yeah. It wasn't the over-application of fertility. It was the soil temperature decline because of weather. Yeah. And we didn't know we never knew how severe the soil temperature decline until we had that data staring us in the face.
Yeah. And by the way, normally in like my part of the world, you don't think soil temperature varies much once you get to a certain time of the season. I think that's probably not accurate.
No, it's not. Based on what we're seeing now, it's not accurate. It rhythm and flows like crazy.
Yeah. All right. You got one for me, Mr. Evans. You got one for me, a real life success story that you said, we thought this, and then we dug into a little deeper, and it turns out we were overspending or we were underspending or we were misapplying or we were mistiming.
Yeah, I mean, we've had one grower that strip tills, and we kind of were a traditional program in his strip till pass, and we did some sap analysis, followed his soil testing, and realized that the mix we were putting on was probably too heavy on potassium, and what we were needing by the patent sap analysis was more available calcium later season. So we've not really changed his overall spend, but we're reallocating those dollars into the nutrients we need. So it wasn't really that he was doing anything wrong. It's just the knowledge we gained through testing that made us change our application or our product recommendation.
Luke, is that normally the deal? You find people like, hey, you're not doing anything completely wrong, but you're off on your timing, or you're probably overusing something.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a good example, Damon, because that's kind of the example I was going to give you. A real life example is, we working with the grower, using hog manure, and which is a great fertility source, and using hog manure on some lighter ground, poor PI soil. First few years saw the yields really increase, and then we started to go backwards. So, and nobody could really figure it out. Everybody at the time, was just blaming it on it. Well, you're losing all the nitrogen in the hog manure, so we dug into a little more and started do a comprehensive soil test, and doing soil health tests along with just the traditional tests, and doing some leaf sampling in that. And what we found that just a baseline soil test wouldn't show you was we started looking at carbon. Mm-hmm. And we had pulled these tests across a lot of different fields, and then we determined that our water extractable carbon numbers where we're running manure had crashed. So we don't have carbon, we can't assimilate nitrogen. So we didn't lose the nitrogen, we lost the ability to assimilate the nitrogen. So simple fix, we switched rotation. It was counterintuitive for everybody, because whenever, especially Illinois, people use hog manure, they think of that nitrogen number.
Yep.
And that's what the value of it is. Well, they don't think of the carbon. And we use the soil sampling and the data to prove that out, because we could compare those carbon numbers to other cornfields and other bean fields. And our corn manure applied fields had lower water extractable carbon than our bean stubble fields that are carbon negative already, the crop is. So the strategy was, you have to think about nitrogen and carbon. So we switched the manure application around and started rotating it, and putting the manure on corn stalks and rotating back and forth between bean stubble and corn stalks. So that at first you would think, oh, well, that's an inefficient use of your nitrogen, because the beans don't need the nitrogen.
Right.
Well, we grew better beans, put it on the high carbon corn stubble, and then everything kind of balanced out. And now those fields are, by the paper, by the PIs in Illinois, are really poor PIs that are growing 25-30% above the county average. And we were going backwards in a hurry. And through using that data, we were able to completely correct that.
Yeah. Which, by the way, it doesn't even seem like that complex. That doesn't even seem that complex, right? You change your application. You changed when you do applications. That's pretty much all you did.
Yeah, that was the main thing. We use some more carbon products in that now, and do a little more work with the manure. But it wasn't that anybody was doing anything wrong. It's that we were overlooking the carbon aspect of the fertility plan when using high rates of hog manure.
Right.
Because like I said, everyone was thinking, and it looked like, hey, we're losing all this nitrogen in the manure. We weren't losing it. We just couldn't assimilate it.
Jerry, I'm gonna get you the last word. I want to do, you've talked me into it. I want to be more into pulling in the data. How do I start? Where do I start? You know what? I'm gonna admit, I just go with what my retail sales agronomist tells me to do. And you're showing me that for $10 an acre, how do I start? It's a little overwhelming.
I think the American farmer, pick your lowest producing field that's constantly dragging the farm average down, and go dive in it, go dissect it, tear it apart, seek to understand what you don't know about that farm, and just roll on that single farm. Work towards bringing it up into the average. But just pick a field.
The way we farmed with no generational wealth, and we farmed the ground nobody else wanted. If you said pick your worst farm, and I'd fill in the blank and say, enrolled in CRP. That's how I would have gone. But instead, I'm just going with what you're saying.
Yeah. No, pick your worst producer and dive in, because you can fix it. That's this management strategy has encouraged me more of the times than not that you can fix a lot of problems, and you can do it quickly, but it takes the right information.
And since I get the last word, I'll go ahead and point out there's only one person within Calibrated Agronomy that routinely insults the quality of the soil that I have on my farm in Indiana. And guess what? It's not Luke, it's not Clint, it's not Jared. It's a guy named Mike Evans. Anyway, he won't insult your soil, but he will help you get bigger yields and save money. The company's called Calibrated Agronomy. This series is called Calibrate Your Agronomy. You know what we do? We cut this full length into a bunch of little bite-sized pieces. So you can go and check out this, go and find your Calibrated Agronomy videos, because it's very much tutorial and it's also cut into bite sizes. So you know what? You're just shaving, or you got like a 10-minute drive, flip it on there and you can catch it, because we cover a lot of different topics. We've talked about water. We've talked about nutrients. We've talked about so many different things here, and it's always very educational. You're hearing from Luke Holst. You're hearing from Jared Cook. You're hearing from Mike Evans. Mr. Evans, if they want to learn more about your company and how you can help them use research recommendations for better agronomic results, where do they go?
We got Facebook, LinkedIn pages. Our website's about to be launched, called calibrateyouragronomy.com. So there'll be ways to reach out there.
And you can always find them, obviously, at all these other places. Mike Evans, Luke Holst, Jared Cook. My name is Damian Mason. Thanks for joining us. I hope this helps you have big results on your farming operation. Until next time, check out the other videos we've released.